So today we're going to talk about linear inequalities, systems of linear inequalities. So to do this, you basically do this by graphing. So the first thing we got to do is we got to take each one of our inequalities, so this one and this one here, and we have to put them in both in slope-intercept form. So let's start with the first one. Okay, so to do that, we're going to take that 3x, we're going to move it to the other side by subtracting it. So you get 2y is greater than or equal to negative 3x minus 2. Then we're going to divide everything by 2. Now remember, with inequalities, if you are dividing by a negative number, it will flip our signs. In this case, we're not, so we're just going to keep it as is. So it's negative 3 over 2x minus 1. Okay, remember there are two things that we got to remember with inequalities, two things. The first is that we will have either a solid or a dashed line. Okay, to be solid, that means you're going to have that equal to line underneath there. To be dashed, that means it doesn't have that. The second thing is you're going to be shading. You're going to be shading in some circumstances. Okay, so we have our first line, so we're going to graph that one. Okay, so our y-intercept here is at negative 1, so we're going to graph negative 1. Let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, and from there, it means we're going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go down some more to the right 2. Okay, since this is a has an equal to sign underneath it, we're going to go ahead and make it a solid line all the way across. And I missed. Make that. We have to spread that way. And spread it that way. All right. So there's my line. Okay, now we need to know where to shade. Well, this currently says y is larger, greater than this line. Okay, so what we do is we look at our y-intercept here. Now y-intercept is here, and it says, when is y bigger than that line? Well, y is bigger than everything above it. So what we're going to do is we're going to shade everything that's above that line. Okay, because that's when y is bigger. Okay, and then we have to shade it, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to fill it so you can see what's going on here. Alright, so there's my first line. Okay, now we got to do the same thing with the second line. So our second equation is, let's do it in green. We have x plus 2y is less than or equal to 2. So again, we have to subtract x. So we get 2y is less than or equal to, way there, negative x plus 2. And then again, we're dividing everything by 2, so we don't have to go ahead and flip our sign because it's not negative. So we get y is less than or equal to negative 1/2 x plus 1. So now we got to graph that line. So our y-intercept's at 1, which is there. We're going to go down 1 to the right 2, which is there. Again, because it's equal to, that means that our equation is going to be, our line is going to be a solid line. So let me make that a green line. Comes across. And adjust it slightly. Okay, and again, to figure out where we're shading, we look at the y-intercept. Okay, this currently says y is less than. So look at our y-intercept. Where the y is smaller? The y is smaller down here below it. So I'm going to go ahead and shade down below. Let's see if this works. It didn't work. Alright, so I have to redo my line because I did not connect. It has to connect to be able to fill it. So give me 1 second. Okay, so there it is. So then we look to see where is the red and green touching. Okay, where is the red and green touching? So the red and green is actually touching right here, in all this area. Which means that, ooh, that's not what I wanted to do, to redo that. Anything in that blue area, this blue region here, all this is a solution. So if a point falls in that area, that means it's a solution. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. All right, so here's our first equation. So again, we have 4x plus y is less than 2. So we move our 4x by subtracting it. So y not equal to. So let me get rid of that. So y is less than negative 4x plus 2. So we're going to start with our y-intercept. Our y-intercept's at 2. From there, I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right 1. Okay. And then here, in this case, if you look at our inequality back at the top, right there, that did not work. Our inequality right there does not have that equal to line underneath it. That means we are going to have a dashed line. So to make our line dashed, first let's make it red again. Okay. And you just select line style here, dashed. So we're going to do a dashed line. So there's my dashed line. And remember what that means is anything that is on that line is not a solution because it's not included. Okay, then we have to do our shading. So it says when is y smaller? So again, go to your y-intercept, look at the y-axis. When are the y's smaller? The y's are smaller. Below it, so anything that's below that line is what we are going to shade. I can't shade the whole thing, so I'm just going to shade this part for right now. So there's my first part. And then I'll continue my shading down here. Do another set. So there it is. All right. So then we got to do the second line. And this second line we don't have to do any solving for. They already got it for us. It says y is greater than or equal to negative 2. Or greater than negative 2. So y is a horizontal line. Okay, it's going to be dashed because it's not equal to. It's just y is greater than. So we're just going to do a horizontal line like that. And it says, when are the y's bigger than that line? Above it or below it? The y's are actually bigger above it. So we're going to shade everything that's above. Okay. And we are going to fill it. And we're looking to see where do the red and green shades meet. And the red and green shades meet all in this area right here. So anything in that blue region is a solution. All right. So we got some word problems here. So when we're dealing with word problems, we got to read it very carefully. Okay, so it says the entrance exam to graduate college has 2 sections, a verbal reasoning. Okay, so we're going to highlight that. It has 2 sections, a verbal reasoning and a quantitative reasoning. Okay, those will probably be our variables. So we're going to go ahead and set those variables. So we know that x is going to be verbal, and y is going to be quantitative. All right, so we know that. The exam has a maximum score of 1,600, okay, for the entire test, and the maximums on each section of the test are 800. So what we know is we know that X can only be up to, so it has to be less than or equal to 800. Same with Y. Y has to be less than or equal to 800. And that's, again, coming from this part. Maximums for each section of the test are 800. The school of your choice has a minimum quantitative score of at least 625 and a total minimum score of 1250. So they tell us two things in this sentence. They tell us that they have a minimum quantitative score of at least 625. So at least means more than or equal to. Okay, so we know Y has to be greater than or equal to 625. And they also tell us one more thing in that same sentence. They tell us that it has to be a total minimum of 1250. So that means X plus Y has to be at least 1250, so greater than or equal to. And it says, we scroll down, now we got everything there. Graph the region that represents the possible verbal and quantitative scores will meet. So basically, we just are going to take each one of these here and graph them. So let's take the first one. X is less than or equal to 800. Okay, so what I'm going to do for my scores here, I'm going to just number them by twos. So we're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay, and the same on the top. Okay. This one is going to represent, our X represents our verbal score in hundreds. And our Y represents quantitative. And that again is in hundreds. Alright. So we got our two scores here. So, well, our first equation is X is less than or equal to 800, which we are in our scale is going to be X is less than or equal to 8. Remember, X is a vertical line. Okay, since it's equal to, that means it's going to be a solid line. Okay. And we're going to undo that. We're going to actually, because we have on this, we don't need the arrows. Just make it a solid line. Okay, and it says when is X smaller? So X is actually smaller below it, so on this side of it. So there's our first line. Okay, our second line says, is this one right here. Y is less than or equal to 800. So it's Y. Oops. Y is less than or equal to 800, which on ours is Y is less than or equal to 8. So that's a horizontal line. So we're going to do that one. This way. Oops. Okay, and it says when is Y smaller, so that means we're going to be below it. So anything that's below, we're going to shade below it. So that's that. Okay. Our third line in this case is when is Y bigger than or equal to 625? So when is Y greater than or equal to 625? That's the same as ours is saying when is Y greater than or equal to 6.25. So again, that's a horizontal line. That's 6.25, which is about right there-ish. Okay, and it says when is y larger than that, so we need to shade everything above it. Okay, and then the last line says x plus y is greater than or equal to 1250. So that's x plus y is greater than or equal to 1250. Is saying x plus y is greater than or equal to 12.5 because we're in 100, so everything moves over. So we got to subtract x. So to graph this line, we're going to have y. Oh, it doesn't work. Y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 12.5. So we're going to start at 12.5 on our y-intercept. And then we're going to go down 1 to the right 1. Which would be about there. And then there. So we have some points. And graph this line. It'll be something like that. And it says when is y larger? Y is larger above this line. So everything above it on the y-axis. And then so what we're looking for is where's that point that they all meet at. And the point that they all meet at, we're going to make it yellow here. The section is right in there. Which is that area right there. So that area in yellow is our solution. Okay, we got a couple more slides to go over with you. Alright, so suppose you are buying two kinds of notebooks for school. A composition book that costs $1 and a 1-inch 3-ring binder that costs $3. You must have at least 6 notebooks. The cost of the notebook can be no more than 15. So when you're writing a system of inequalities, okay, it's the same way you write a system of equations. The first one typically will deal with the amount of total items, and the second one will deal with the money part. Okay, so we have two variables. We're going to have x, which is going to be composition books, and then you have y, which is going to be your binders. Okay, so when we are talking about amount, let's look at the amount. The only thing that we know about the amount is that you must have at least 6 notebooks in total. Okay, so when we're dealing with this, that's just simply going to be x plus y, and it says you have to have at least. At least means you have to have more than, greater than or equal to 6. Okay, then the second part that we have to deal with is the money. So it says a composition book costs $1, so that would be, and 1-inch 3-ring binder costs $3. And it says the cost of the notebook should be no more than $15. Okay, so when we go back to this equation, we know that it's going to be 1x, or just x, plus 3y. And because it says we can't go over $15, no more than, that means we're going to do less than or equal to. Okay, so then it's going to tell us to solve the system by graphing. So we're going to take each one of these equations. Let's start with the first one. So we got x plus y is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, so we're going to subtract y from both sides, subtract that x from both sides. We're going to move that x over. So we get y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 6. So there's our first equation, so we need to graph it. So to do that, we first got to number a number line. So let's do that. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, these are comp books, remember, because we said x was comp books, so that should be your x-axis. Okay, your y's. are going to be your binders. Okay, so if we graph our first line, our y-intercept is 6. And it says we're going to go down 1 to the right 1. So I'm going to go down 2 to the right 2, because that would be the same. Okay, and then we're going to graph this line. Okay, it's going to be solid because we have a greater than or equal to sign. Okay, so there's my first line. Then we're going to do the same thing, but this time with the second one. So our second equation is x plus 3y is less than or equal to 15. So in this equation, we're going to have to subtract x. So you always got to move x first. And we get 3y is less than or equal to negative x plus 15. Divide everything by 3. So you get y is less than or equal to negative 1 over 3x plus 5. So our y-intercept is 5, which is there. We're going to go down 1 to the right 3, which is there. Okay, we're going to graph our line here. Okay, so we dealt with that part. Now we got to deal with shading. So let's look back at the red line. At the red line, it says, when is y larger? So go to your y-intercept. When is y bigger? Y is bigger. All of this area here. All of that. All of that. And you need to get connected. So I got to do it again. So all of this. All of that. So now, when we shade it, there's our first shade. Now if we look at the green line, it says when is y smaller? So go to your y-axis, and it says when are the y's smaller? Well, the y's are smaller below, so we're going to shade all of this area right there. And you're looking, where do the red and where do they meet? Where does the red and green meet? And the red and green meet in this area right in there. So that would be your solution. That blue area is your solution. Okay, a couple more problems to work on. All right, it says Chahoua Campgrounds provides mountain hikes. A counselor can take no more than 30 campers on a hike per day. Each day there is a load trail and a high trail. The counselor must have a minimum of 10 campers on the load trail and a minimum of 5 campers on the high trail. All right, so we first got to set our variables. Okay, so we're going to set x as our load trail and y as our high trail. Okay, we know that total between the two trails, they cannot take no more than 30 campers. So I'm going to write that as x plus y, no more than is less than or equal to 30 per day. Then they tell us some other stipulations. They tell us, one, that counselor must have a minimum of 10 campers on the load trail. Okay, so a minimum of 10. So we're going to write that as load trail, so that's x. X has to be greater than or equal to 10. They also tell us that they must have a minimum of 5 campers on the high trail. So we know that they must have y has to be greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so let's scroll down. First, we got to number our number line. So we'll do it by, I'm going to do mine by 3s. And you can do these by whatever you feel like. I'm just doing it by bigger numbers. Okay, and remember your y is your high. And then same thing on the bottom. And those are your low trail people. Okay, so we're going to do each equation. Start with the first one. So we have, oops, that's not what we wanted. So we have x plus y is less than or equal to 30. So we're going to subtract x from both sides. And we get y is less than or equal to negative x plus 30. So let's graph that. So we got our y-intercept at 30. We know we're going to go down 1 to the right 1, so I'm going to go down 3 to the right 3, so I'm on actual things here. And we're going to graph this line. It's going to be solid because we're equal to it. And there's my line right there. Okay, so we got to do some shading. So it says, look at our y-axis, or y-intercept, and it says, when is y smaller? Well, y is smaller below, so we're going to shade everything below that y-intercept line. So there it is. Okay, then we got our other two equations we got to deal with. The second equation is x is greater than or equal to 10. Well, that's an easy one. That's just a vertical line, so let's graph that. Let's make the color right. So at 10, a vertical line, so let's say it's about there. And it says, when is x bigger than that? Well, x is bigger to the right. If we look at our x-axis here, everything to the right, all the numbers get bigger, so we're going to go that direction. Okay. And then lastly, our last equation was y is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so y is greater than or equal to 5. That's a horizontal line. So let's go ahead and make that one. And it says, when is y larger? Well, y is larger above it. If we look at our y-axis. So we're looking to see when are they all the same, and when they're all the same right in this area right here. That's where they all meet, the red, the green, and the blue. So that yellow is our solution. Anything that falls in that yellow would be an answer to this equation. Okay. Martha's Bakery is baking leaves of banana bread and poppy seed almond bread. The recipe for 1 loaf of banana bread calls for 2 cups of flour and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. 1 loaf of poppy seed almond bread requires 1.5 cups of flour and 2.5 teaspoons of baking soda. The bakery has 24 cups of flour and 26 teaspoons of baking soda. Okay. So we're going to have 2 equations here. First we have to set our variables. So we're going to set x as banana and y as the poppy seed. Okay, and what we're going to deal with is our 2 equations. One's going to deal with the flour. So we're going to deal with flour first. So banana bread has 2 cups of flour. Poppy seed requires 1.5 cups of flour, and the bakery has 24 cups of flour. So when we're writing this equation, we're going to have 2x plus 1.5y has to be less than or equal to 24. Okay, the other equation that we're going to have is going to be the baking soda. So banana bread has 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Poppy seed has 2.5 teaspoons of baking soda. And the bakery has 26 teaspoons of baking soda. So we're going to write that out. So we're going to have x plus 2.5y. And because they only have 26, that's to be less than or equal to 26. So we're going to graph it. So again, I'm going to go by threes. It's jumping on me. 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, X was the banana, and Y was the poppy seed. Okay, so we're going to take these two equations and we're going to graph them. So I'm going to take that first one, 2x plus 1.25y is less than or equal to 24. And since it's in standard form, this one, the easiest way to graph this one would be to do the x and y intercept. So to do our x-intercept, set y equal to 0. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get x has to be less than or equal to, has to be x equals 12. And to do my y, set x equal to 0 and solve. So 24 divided by 1.25 gives me a y-intercept of y equals 16. So I can graph those 2 points. So my y-intercept is 16. My x-intercept is 12. So I'm going to graph that line. It's a little off, but that's okay. And this one tells me it has to be less than or equal to. So that means everything has to be below it. So I'm going to shade everything below. And there's my first one. Okay, the second equation that we had here was x plus 2.5y has to be less than or equal to 26. Okay, and again, I'm going to find my x and y intercept. So to find x, set y equal to 0. So the x-intercept is when x equals 26. To find my y-intercept, set x equal to 0. So 26 divided by 2.5 gives me a y-intercept of 10.4. So we're going to graph those. So 26, somewhere about there. 10.4 is somewhere about there. We're going to graph it. And it says, when is y smaller? Well, y is smaller, everything below that line. Okay, which is there. And so our solution is going to be, and it's hard to tell because I didn't do it the right way, but it's about right in this area right there. So our solution is right there. Okay, so it says, which of the combinations can Martha have? So we got 1 banana bread and 5 poppy seed. So we got to go back to our graph to answer those questions. So you just look to see if those points fall inside there. Okay, and I'll just tell you which ones do. Okay, the ones that fall inside there are that one and that one. And then lastly, do any combination above use all the flour and baking soda, and if so, what's the combination? Then there's one. It's when we have 6 banana bread and 8 poppy seed. All right, so now go ahead and you're going to start working on your math Excel for this assignment.